Welcome back to episode 14 of the Can I Tell You Something podcast.
Yes, we have an episode for you all about Oprah's response to the Maui wildfires. And while this might seem like some old news when it comes to disaster relief and recovery, the path to recovery is not as quick as a headline. It's not as quick as the immediate event. It is an ongoing effort, and it takes years, actually. So, yes, this is almost 2 months after the initial fire, which happened on August 8th. But we felt that it was really important to address this specific relief event because I think we both agree that it says a lot about the nature of what relief efforts look like and celebrity looks like.
Definitely. So, this isn't going to be an episode about what happened in Maui because by this point we all kind of know, we'll acknowledge it, but we also thought, we are not the people who have the authority to be reporting on that disaster. Instead, we're going to talk about Oprah and The Rock and the little fund that they set up and kind of take a deep dive into why it's so problematic and why people on the internet are really upset with them. And we'll go into how the fund is structured, if not that money is actually being delivered to people impacted by the fires. And then at the end, we'll have an open discussion after we've learned all of the facts from Brendan so that we can talk about maybe the impact of celebrity and why this response is so wrong.
Yeah, so just for a high-level overview of the facts that we're going to go over. First, it's just going to be what happened in Maui, just to ground ourselves in the event itself. What Oprah's response to what happened in Maui was, what exactly the People's Fund of Maui is, and then Oprah's response to the public backlash to her fundraiser.
Yes, so, and we will be hearing from Oprah and The Rock themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So stay tuned for that. But until then, let's get started with part one, the facts.
So what happened in Maui? On August 8th, 2023, a wildfire broke out on the island of Maui. It's killed now an estimated 97 people. That estimate's actually down from an earlier one that said 115, and currently there's still 31 people missing. This is current as of September 28th, 2023. One of the big issues with this initial disaster relief was that they were not properly informed of the wildfire when it was happening. They were not given clear evacuation instructions. There is a lot of what I was finding in my research is there was already a sentiment that if something happened on Maui, that it would take 72 hours for people to actually address it or to be able to provide help that's needed. So unfortunately, the writing was kind of on the wall for an event like this happening where lines of communication are cut, where there is not a clear government response that was directly addressing the needs of the people that were displaced, helping people evacuate and get out of the way of the fire itself. We grew up in Colorado. We know what that proper communication looks like. You get a lot of alerts on your phone. You get text messages. You get people that post on social media as well saying these counties are being evacuated, these ones are not. And it seems like a lot of that didn't happen, and that's why it was particularly devastating.
Yeah, I also want to comment on that. When you grow up in an area that is commonly impacted by fires, you're kind of raised in what to do. Like, I remember my parents telling me, these are the things you're going to grab and these are the things you aren't. And we would practice that. But in a place where that doesn't happen, that would be so unfamiliar to you. Like, for instance, in Colorado, we don't know what hurricane disasters are like. We have no idea. We don't understand tornadoes. Like, there's certain things that regions just aren't accustomed to. So when it happens, it's that much more devastating. And that's just like the people side. But when you go into why it happened and the response afterwards, it's like 10 times more devastating.
And it seems like a lot of the initial outcry from the people of Maui was that the relief that they were being provided was really from the grace of the people around them. Like, it was private citizens doing things, going out of their way to help out as opposed to a really coordinated disaster relief effort. And I understand that when it comes to like government funding and when it comes to government relief efforts, you're moving a bigger ship there, but that's also why things like FEMA are in place. That's why a lot of the groundwork that these administrations do is put there so that when the big thing happens, they're ready the moment it happens. And yeah.
And I do want to comment on FEMA specifically. I have a sister who works for them and was called out to help with her dogs searching for people. And that was within, I think, like 24 hours. So I think the response was there. It just wasn't at the magnitude that was needed at that time. And after that, a month down the line, 2 months down the line, what's next? So now let's get into how Oprah responded.
Yes, Oprah was particularly devastated by the destruction of Maui, considering she also recently invested $6 million to buy almost 1,000 acres on the island. So, I mean, at this point, she has a financial stake in the island.
She had a lot of property at stake. I can't discount her caring because I think when everyone heard about this, of course you're going to care. It's devastating. But for her, there seemed to be maybe some ulterior motives or
a conflict of interest.
A conflict of interest at the very least. So let's hear from Oprah and The Rock, who was also involved in this, directly from the source.
Yeah, this is the thing that started this whole fiasco.
We were so concerned about what was happening in Maui that we were texting back and forth. And I read this article that Dolly Parton had given money in her community. And I said, I think this is the answer. You said, I think that's the answer.
I said, I love it.
And so we have created the People's Fund of Maui that will put money directly in the hands of the people who need it right now. So if you send a donation, just click where you see below and send a donation. That money is going to go to one of many residents who have been displaced in Maui. We guarantee.
That's right. I know a lot of people out there, as Oprah and I have been finding, are just having a hard time trusting where the money goes. What organizations should I send money to? How can I help? In this case, the fund that we created with a lot of hard work from a lot of hardworking people who all care about these people of Maui. As Oprah was saying, it is a clean, direct from you directly to their hands and right away with some real immediacy, because as we're finding, as you guys around the world know, with disasters like this, the number one need is money.
Is money.
In hand.
And so people being able to have their own agency, being able to make decisions for themselves about what they need and what their family needs, that's our goal, is to get that to the people now. And so we appreciate any support that you can give. All the people who were calling me and texting me and messaging me and saying, what do I do? What do I do? This is what you do.
Now you know.
The People's Fund of Maui.
Oh my. And I do want to just paint a picture real quick for those who are just listening. Oprah and The Rock they look beautiful. They're color coordinated in what they're wearing. Their lighting is perfect. I assume they're in Hawaii somewhere or California, I don't know. And everything looks so picturesque and perfect in that video.
So one of the big things that came out of this specifically, and it's not mentioned in the video, but they pledged to donate $10 million to this fund, right? And the way that this fund is structured is that they would give the people of Maui that apply for it $1,200 a month for an unknown period of time. They said at least 6 months. If you're wondering how this is structured financially, like where am I sending money to? How are they able to take payments and actually get it to someone? This is actually just an extension of the Entertainment Industry Fund or Foundation. The Entertainment Industry Foundation is the same foundation that does the Stand Up to Cancer campaign. And I've taken a look through their finances, and I mean, it's It's not the most efficient fund when it comes to donating to causes. The idea with this is that it makes it easier for people like Oprah and The Rock to set up a way to donate quickly. But I've also been unable to verify whether or not people have received these donations. And I mean, there's numbers out there that 2,200 people have been approved for donations. The community that was wiped out has a population of 13,000. So that's like kind of where we're at in terms of the coverage that is being received by this specific fund. Additionally, there is kind of the lack of transparency with how the funds are being received by people right now is astounding. Like I actually could not find an instance of someone receiving any funds. If anyone knows of someone that can verify whether or not people are receiving funds from this, I would love to know. I understand that it is not a very easy or simple process to get this up and going, but I know for a fact that people's ability to apply to this fund closed on September 22nd, so almost a week ago. There was a headline on September 17th where The Rock was saying that people should be receiving their money soon. So it hasn't happened as of September 17th, as far as I can tell. And I would imagine that it should have happened by now, especially considering their applications have closed.
And they seem to have just so much urgency. In that video they made, that's the first thing they said, that this is what people need.
Yeah.
It's money. They don't need toothpaste or pillows or blankets. Like, of course they do, but before anything else, they need money. I do want to take a step back and kind of dissect how this fund works, though, because when I first saw these headlines, I assumed that it was Oprah and The Rock donating $10 million from their own personal money. I never in a million years would have thought that, no, it's they're setting it up and asking other people, like everyday US citizens, to donate money under their name, and then they get the credit for it.
Yeah, so that's a really important point about this. In that first video, there's no disclosure of how much they're contributing to the fund themselves. It really comes from a place of, if you want to feel good about Maui by throwing money at the situation, we've figured that out for you. And I mean, as you're saying, it's like they're asking people with substantially less means than themselves. And let's keep in mind, The Rock is worth about $250 million. Oprah's almost worth $3 billion, just shy of $3 billion. Between the two of them, that
10 million would be nothing if they were the ones actually pledging the money themselves.
You know, I actually did a little back of the envelope calculation. For someone like Oprah, right? If you have, or between the two of them, if you have a $3 billion net worth, and because people always say, oh, net worth is not cash on hand, it's different, this sort of stuff. Okay, whatever, I'll take that. But let's just say that their assets are increasing in value by 3% a year, which is incredibly low. That means that they're just matching inflation. That gives them over $84 million a year in growth. Just think about that. That is money to match inflation. That is not, they would be taking a very, very safe investing approach to be able to create that money. So it's nothing. It is truly so insubstantial. Like, the equivalent to, I was trying to think about what an equivalent would be for like an everyday working person. And I couldn't really wrap my head around it, only because the way that I could create that analog for them is purely based off of how much their assets are growing each year.
Well, we also know that the average American has little to no savings and are living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, we understand that. All of our friends understand that. And so to even ask people to donate outside of that for something that doesn't even get to benefit them is absurd to me. So that is where this controversy is really rooted in. It's the structure of this fund. And I mean, she talked about transparency in that video. There is no transparency. In fact, it's quite deceitful. And that is really, really upsetting to me to see someone who is, I mean, incredibly beloved. I'd say right up there with US royalty. It's like Beyonce and Oprah and the Obamas. To see someone like that who's held at such a regard kind of pull a fast one like this is really, really upsetting.
And that's where I think we should get into Oprah's response to the backlash, because you're characterizing it like quite perfectly. Like, I was trying to find that analog for what is this for normal people, and I couldn't, because exactly as you said, it is like people aren't sitting on assets that are growing year over year.
Exactly. Like when you said assets, I was thinking, oh, I don't have a single asset. What does that mean? Like, that's not how the everyday person operates or even thinks about their finances. So you can't compare a billionaire to a millionaire, and you can't compare a millionaire to a regular, everyday paycheck to paycheck person.
Yeah.
So the backlash was getting pretty heavy online. I think specifically on TikTok, there was a lot of commentary about this. And naturally, Oprah had to respond because it came to a level where if she didn't, it would, I think, just be 10 times worse. So let's hear from her to see what she thinks about the backlash of the People of Maui Fund.
Yes. And I want to preface this video with, I want you to listen to the question that Oprah has asked. And I want you to, in the back of your mind, think, is this someone that is trying to get to the bottom of this situation? Or is this someone that's trying to give an easy question, a meatball kind of PR style question to Oprah, so that she has the opportunity to provide a different narrative? Just think about that as we watch this.
Oprah, I want to shift gears a little bit and turn to the Hawaii wildfires and the efforts to help those in need. The People's Fund of Maui was created by you and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, in which you both poured time, effort, and millions to kick it off yourselves. Yet and still, it faced online criticism. I want to give you the opportunity to kind of give your thoughts on that.
Well, this is a really great point about being happier in the midst of an onslaught of being terrorized and vilified online. I will say this, I came out of this experience, I was just saying this to Arthur this morning, with so much more compassion for young kids, because I was thinking, what if I didn't really know who I am? What if I didn't have the assurance of Invictus, that I am the master of my own fate and the captain of my soul? If you
it would have taken you down.
It would have taken, it will take you out. So all of the online, being
slander and
attacks, lies, conspiracy theories, really took the focus off of what was the most important thing, and that was the people of Maui. So this idea came about because, as you know, when you were there, Tony, I was on the ground talking to lots of people, trying to figure out how do I best help. And in the beginning, it was just, material things, dropping off generators and towels. And then I started talking to people. People really wanted their own agency. Gail's son, Will, sent me an article about Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton, in 2017, during the wildfires in Gatlinburg, started a People's Fund. She called it My People's Fund. She had a concert. She raised $12.5 million and then directly gave it to the people, $1,000 a month. I thought, whoa, that's the idea. So
getting the money into the hands of the people.
Directly into the hands of the people. To set up the infrastructure for that, The Rock and his team and my team, we were literally on I don't know how many Zooms to set up the infrastructure for the verification process to be able to drop money into people's accounts. And we thought, because both of us have given to charities our whole life. I've been giving to charity since my first paycheck, a tither.
And still do that.
And still do that. Okay. So we thought starting the fund with $10 million would be a great idea because any of us who've ever been to any benefit, you know, you go to a benefit and somebody gives $10 million, that's called a good night.
Yes. Right.
So we thought $10 million would start off the fund. We'll do what Dolly did, get other people to give money, and then we'll put it directly into the people's bank accounts. I was so excited. I was so excited about it.
It's still a good idea.
And then I got up the next morning.
You still should be.
Yeah.
I was so excited. I got up the next morning and I saw all of this vitriol and I was like, whoa, what happened here? So this is what I want to say. I want to say that, you know, I think in the beginning, so many people were calling, asking, where do we give our money to? So I thought, I'm going to give people a place to
create.
We're going to create something. And I still think it's a really strong idea.
Yeah.
Dolly Parton was right. Putting money directly into the hands of the people is a significant thing. And the model that's been created, I will say that as of today, 2,200 people have been cleared and verified. And those people are going to get a notice from the People's Fund of Maui and going to have the money.
And it's working. It made me deeply mad. It made you deeply sad.
Made me sad that we're at this state in our country,
that.
you know?
I actually do want to add a contrasting point because we dragged The Rock into this. And he's had a response to it. Apparently, more or less, it's kind of hearsay that he's not very happy about the whole situation. But
not happy about how the fund was set up, or not happy about the backlash it's receiving?
I think it was more of like how the fund was set up and like some of the
interesting.
Like I can tell that he was like, yeah, I'll put my name on it because this is a good thing to do, right? On paper, this is like the sort of the sort of thing that I should use my name, image, and likeness for. And I want to use this as a contrast to the way that Oprah addressed the criticism. So this is not perfect, but just the contrast is big.
Game with this because I donated millions of dollars of my own personal money up front. And thank you very much. I appreciate that. Millions and millions. I got to tell you about the criticism. I totally get it, and I completely understand. Money's not growing on trees. A lot of people out there are living paycheck to paycheck, and I get it. I've been there. I've had $7. We've all been there. And I get why it made some people upset, and I could have communicated that message a lot better. What I should have said was, all right, guys, we got a People's Fund of Maui. We're all heartbroken, devastated. Millions of dollars here, I'm donating. That's going to go directly into the people's hands. I appreciate all the love and all the support and all the prayers. Keep it coming. And
it's like, is it a perfect response? No, but can you, like the deflection from the Oprah response?
I mean, he actually answered the question, whereas Oprah did not. And I mean, of course, she's incredibly media trained. She is media. She's the capital M.
The queen of media, as I was finding in my research.
Yeah, so of course her response to that question was incredibly calculated. And she probably thought, she got away with it. But I am here to tell you, she did not. I was so mad and disappointed when I heard that because, as Brendan will tell you, she was doing press for a certain something that is about to come out.
Oh, yeah. So I wanted to double check this because the Oprah apology tour clip comes from a daytime panel where she's promoting her new book.
Oh, new book.
New book titled Build the Life You Want. And from what I was finding in terms of online reviews, it seems like she didn't write too much of it. It was in a collaboration with a Harvard professor who studies, the science, the social science behind happiness. And so it's kind of like, how some books will have a forward or an introduction from another author, and then someone else will kind of really kick it off. I got the sense it was one of those kinds of books, and it was a pop science book.
To be honest, that's not what I care about. Does that sound a little fishy? Of course. But what I was really getting at was, this is a press run.
Yeah.
I want to be so clear with all of you out there that everything a celebrity does is calculated, down to every single social media post, down to what they wear, how they talk, what they say. I mean, there is no doubt that this was correlated with keeping her in the news to promote the book. That's not a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
That's just how media and publicity works. And so, yes, was this fund coming from a good intention? Sure, I fully believe it was, but it was executed in such a horrible, horrible manner that, I just fully believe that it will have little to no effect on the people who have been devastated by this fire.
I want to build off of what you were saying there too, because I wanted to make sure that this book was set to be published the day it was, just so there wasn't any sort of if it was at all like the publishing date was bumped up due to this backlash. That wasn't the case. I could verify that. The book itself was released on September 12th, which means that it was about a month after the Maui fires. And I mean, when it comes to these press runs, that is your, you boots on the ground, you show up at every single media opportunity you can to promote a book like that. And yeah, so it's, the idea of being seen, being observed, being heard is really important to celebrities, especially when they're about to release some new product.
Let's get into her reference to Dolly Parton, because that was just hurtful for me to hear. I'm sure a lot of you out there know how influential and impactful Dolly Parton is, and that her philanthropy is actually going to the people that she says it's going to. And so I think Brendan has some evidence for us, because to me, it feels like Oprah's just trying to cosplay as Dolly.
But then again, who isn't?
I get that. I hear you. I see you. But for me, when she just started name dropping Dolly, it was so apparent how fake she was.
Yeah. It was along the lines of, I like the idea that Dolly had. I want that for me.
Yeah,
Can I have my Dolly moment?
I want people to associate me as that. And it's like Oprah, people already associate you with giving away things like, you get a car, you get a car.
Yeah.
Or SNL's, you get the bread, you get the bread. You already have that image. Why are you trying to be something else you're not?
It's one of those things where it's like, okay, when is it enough? So
why don't
let's
you
get
tell
into
us
the
what
Dolly
Dolly
bit.
did?
Yeah, so the Dolly Parton bit, you might have heard Oprah reference it in that interview, but I got some cold, hard evidence, some real facts on this one. And that includes two important documents. The first is a University of Tennessee study about the impact of the My People Fund, which was Dolly Parton's fund that this Maui wildfire fund is based off of. And so it's a independent analysis of the impact of it. The second thing, too, is that I looked at the Dollywood Foundation, which is Dolly Parton's nonprofit, and I looked at their financials, and guess what? They're spending almost all of their money on books and mailing fees to get books to kids. So that's really, if you want to find a good charity to donate to, I was very impressed with the numbers there. So very cool. But yeah, so this is basically what happens, or what happened with the My People Fund. So on November 28th, 2016, there was a fire in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. It destroyed approximately 1,300 residences, and there was, of course, a local economic and housing crisis because of it. The initial promise was $1,000 a month for 6 months, but Dolly didn't do that. She did $1,000 a month for 5 months, and then $5,000 on the 6th month.
Oh, Dolly. And
Dolly.
You know what? I just want to compare cost of living here. You said this was in Tennessee?
This was in Tennessee.
Tennessee versus Hawaii.
Very different. And also in 2017. So you could do an inflation calculation there. You could do
that is incredible. Not only generous, but just so kind and helpful.
So yeah, an important bit of this too is when you fundraise for any bit, you might have some change left over. And this fund in particular had $3 million left over. And it was donated to Mountain Tough, a community agency created to respond to the ongoing needs of families. So not only was this a way to support families over a period of time, but then also leave them, the community itself, with a substantial sum of money to continue these efforts. So that's the model that Oprah was going after.
It's not even a remote reflection. Like they are nowhere near each other. And I do want to bring to attention, of course, this happened in 2017, so this university has had time to conduct this study. Obviously, with the Maui fire situation, we're just a couple months out.
Yes.
Month and 3/4 out. And so we don't really know the lasting impact. We don't really know if and when that money will be delivered. So we do kind of have to wait to make an absolute claim against Oprah. So I don't want anyone out there to think that we're just attacking her for that. Like we're coming down on her hard because things are not looking so good for Miss Oprah with the facts we have now.
I think it's important to remember that we're trying to keep people like this accountable.
So now that you've had the facts laid out before you, I think it's time to get into, our debrief. What does all of this mean?
Yeah. I think that the most important question to ask is, when donating money to a cause or anything like that, like where does the money go, right? I want to be clear that we are not trying to vilify the idea of donating money to places. What I would really like and appreciate, especially considering the information age we're in, where people can share this sort of information really quickly and readily, is that there is some sort of transparency for, okay, we've raised this much money. This is the day that money's going to start hitting people's accounts. We have now given out X amount of money. This sort of transparency is entirely possible with these organizations. And in fact, I think that, especially when someone like Oprah is in hot water, that has the means to show what it's like to create a very transparent organization or a transparent fundraiser, the fact that they don't, I think says a lot. For me, if I was in that situation, and I was under fire, I'd be like, everything's going to be so clean. It's going to be so transparent. I'm going to bombard social media with evidence that we are doing the right thing, and give receipts to people and show the impact. But that has not been done.
I think the biggest issue regarding this fund is not only the figureheads attached to it, Oprah and The Rock, and their lack of transparency, but also the place, the location that this happened. I've heard a lot of people talk about Oprah on TikTok specifically, but I haven't heard a lot of people bring it back to what actually happened and why it happened and how avoidable this wildfire really was, this disaster was. I mean, everyone knows how Hawaii has gotten the shit end of the stick since the beginning. It has been colonized to a point where the very small population of natives that are left can barely afford to survive on their native land. It's devastating when a natural or non-natural disaster happens anywhere. I'm not saying that. But when it happens in a place that kind of just can't seem to catch a break, and I'm not saying that other disasters in places that have more resources aren't bad. I mean, these disasters suck every single time, no matter what. But it's that much worse when it happens in an area that is technically part of the United States, but isn't supported like the rest of the United States is. And then to see a billionaire come in, trying to be almost the face of this disaster, and then make money off of this. I mean, it is so plainly obvious that this was done as a tax loophole. There are people in our lives who operate like this. We know a lot of people with a lot of money. And I've heard said people in our lives discuss this tragedy, not in a way that, oh my God, I could never imagine that happening. What can I do way? In a money way only. It's always about money with these people. Why does giving money always have to have a financial motive? That's what baffles me about this. Because, we hear about it all the time. If a couple of the 1% got together, a lot of issues could be fixed. Let's look at it this way. Let's say 5 of the top landowners on Maui got together in their collective billions that they are worth, Oprah included. Let's say they got together and decided to give $100 million. I don't know. I'm just throwing a number out there for what I think it might take to directly go into the hands of people. They didn't make it a public affair. They just did it because they know it's the right thing to do. To me, that makes a whole lot of sense. This Maui People Fund of Maui, doesn't. I actually think it's rather predatory because it is so disgusting to me when these out-of-touch, wealthy individuals come together and decide to ask everyday people to fix the problems they are directly responsible for. I mean, Oprah owns so much land, and Hawaii is just one area she does. And that could be a whole other discussion. To me, it's just like, make it make sense.
What is particularly problematic in my trying to like understand the nuance and the complexity of, okay, yes, you have a disaster that happens, you have relief that's necessary. What specific things about this Oprah situation make it so problematic or like so hazardous? And as you identified, it's the incentives and the nature and the disposition are just, there's a lot that benefits Oprah about this situation and not that much that benefits the people of Maui. And Oprah is someone that has the means to make substantial impacts around the world. And it's unfortunate when something that seems cut and dry like this turns into a PR opportunity. There are celebrities out there that donate substantial amounts of money and don't make a PR opportunity out of it. It's a thing that happens. In fact, Kendrick Lamar donated a lot of money to Compton schools, and it was leaked that he donated the money. And he was incredibly upset about it because he didn't want anything to be about him with that.
Keyword leaked.
Yeah, it was leaked. And he addresses it in one of his albums. He was like, don't gossip about who gave this money, just give it to the kids. That sort of stuff is just, it's really unfortunate because then the flip side is then the money, the numbers, that sort of stuff. It feels like such a hard, stone cold receipt to say you can't speak ill about it. Like, yeah, everyone's going to feel uncomfortable puffing their chest out and saying what Oprah did was wrong when she then says, oh, I donated $10 million. Because then it feels like you have to defend not wanting that money. Right. It's like, because there is such a substantial sum of money attached to it, all of a sudden it's beyond criticism. And that's how a lot of this works, is it's like if people that run these organizations can have a statistic that makes them free from accountability, that makes them appear holier than thou, then it works in their service and not in service of the people that they're trying to help. Also, when it comes to disaster relief, especially natural disaster relief, like some of the most tricky and like truly time-consuming and difficult parts of that recovery are labor. Like literally just people being in that spot conducting things that take humans to conduct. Like search and rescue is a labor thing. It is not a throw money at it and then it gets fixed thing.
Well, but that specific act of labor is provided by the government.
Exactly. But it's like those are the sorts of other things like working through, there's a lot of people that owned land there there's discussions about, okay, now that everything's been burnt down, who owns what, and is anything going to change? And how do people that had houses and had places living there, advocate for where they lived? And it's like, that's a whole other thing. That's a legal labor issue too. Like there are all these instances where you need people to be there actually performing work that you can't just throw money at to solve the problem. And so I think that's where it's really frustrating. And that's where you get a lot of people that are upset about it is they see people throwing money at things, but they don't see the solidarity within the labor of actually fixing things. And it's not that you need everyone to be performing like manual labor all the time for us to all feel good, but it's like this is something where Oprah is directly benefiting from the recovery of Maui because of the amount of real estate that she owns there. And if you are... And
I was more saying when she's financially benefiting, it's like the tax write-off and the tax incentive she's getting. So it's like, no, it's not like she's selling a product and making profit. It's what she doesn't lose.
Yeah, actually...
And that's how finances for the extremely wealthy work. And so when we talked about earlier in the episode, like wealthy people have assets, normal people have paychecks. Mm-hmm. That's the difference here. She has such an incentive to try and fix things there, even if it's half-assed, because then she's protected.
The other thing, actually, it just clicked to me as well, is any sort of, when Oprah has to do taxes like every other American at the end of the year, this donation will be entirely tax deductible.
And guess whose name it's under? It's under Oprah's. It's not under the people who actually gave the money to contribute to the fund. That's what's so weird.
Yeah. I mean, I really want to dig deeper into the whole Dolly Parton situation too. Like if there was any sort of, reaching out to the community for like fundraising parts of it, I could not find that sort of information.
And that kind of stuff is really hard to find.
Yeah.
And of course, it's like, yes, you can donate. You can have tax write-offs and deductions because that's the way our system works. You're not a criminal. You're not a bad person for having a tax write-off. You're a bad person the moment that motivates how you donate.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And
yeah.
Donations, giving to charity is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But the way that the wealthy and the 1% of the 1% go about it is so calculated and so bad for the everyday people that it's supposed to be benefiting. And we talk about this a lot where it's like, okay, a situation happens to an oppressed community. Should it be the job of the people who made the problem? Or should it be the job of the oppressed people who know how to fix it?
Yeah.
In my perfect world, the people who made the problem, the colonizers, should be paying for it, but they shouldn't be managing it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, really only the people in Maui who experience this tragedy know exactly what they need. They are the only ones who should have the authority to say, this is where the money goes, this is how it's split up, this is how much we need to survive every month until we're back on our feet. Because we know the $1,200 or what was it, $1,300 a month that they were supposed to get, that's not even half of the average rent in Maui. That money's not going to do anything. If the people living there were actually given the power and the authority to share some insight, maybe that money could be beneficial. But it's not when it's managed by a team of lawyers, Oprah's PR team, and Oprah. I mean, who do you think they're going to want to serve? Not the people of Maui. They want to make sure Oprah's happy.
It's simple. It's like, who has the authority to get the cash into a bank account will tell you a lot about the nature of power in this. Because then, if the people of Maui also want to say what they truly feel about this situation, and it is in direct conflict to Oprah's occupation of Maui, like they're naturally going to say, I should think twice before I say these sorts of things, even if it's 100% true and what I feel and other people who agree with me. You always have to be careful, like testing power, challenging power. And it's very evident that especially Oprah-like figures are unwilling to put them or to let go of power for the greater good. I mean, what did Oprah give up in this whole situation? Like, truly.
Nothing.
And that's what needs to be asked every single time one of these sorts of like charities or fundraisers show up. Is that person risking anything? Are they giving up anything? Yes, $10 million. Okay, but if that's a tax write-off, and now we're just back to square one.
Well, and also $10 million out of a $3 billion
is
net
nothing.
Worth, like, it's actual percentages of pennies.
Yeah.
That's what really, really pisses me off, because to people like us, like 10 million, I can't even fathom what $1 million is like, let alone 10 million. But then when you compare that to $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion, it's nothing. And so it's my opinion that this is doing more harm than good. And that's why I really wanted to talk about it on this podcast, because we all saw the gossip. We know what's going on in Maui. We saw the backlash with Oprah. But at least until this episode and the research you did, I didn't really understand why, like truly why it was so bad, until you get into the structure of these funds and you start learning why people do certain things. It's just like the curtain gets peeled back and you're just left with such a bad taste in your mouth.
It very much is like the big reason why we wanted to do this episode was because I was like talking with you about this, and I was saying that I saw a TikTok that talked about how Oprah was a media darling, and the fact that people were so vocally against her throughout this is a huge shift in culture that is worth noting. And my feeling around that shift is that we are approaching a time where I think people are getting very sick of celebrity in the way that it's currently presenting itself. That plus people have access to far more information at any given moment than ever before. And within that information, we from, the cloudy skies of Seattle can investigate how effective a celebrity charity is. Like, everyday people can actually hold people in power accountable, and if that comes through like cyberbullying Oprah online, like,
so be
it. I mean, she still got to launch her book and then go on to a talk show. Like it's truly not harming her. She can turn off her phone. Like, if cyberbullying's so real to Oprah, like, literally just close your eyes. Like,
exactly.
Oh God.
And it's almost like she's trying to get people to feel bad for her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I'm just like, oh, honey, you just don't get it.
And this is where people like Oprah are getting exposed more and more as media is evolving to have more voices in the conversation and more ways for us to actually check in with whether or not people are doing what they say they'll do and like holding people accountable. Yeah, there's a reason why cancel culture exists. Cancel culture exists because people have now been able to identify these sorts of patterns or these sorts of behaviors, or actually, pull up old clips, old footage of people in a way that's never been done before.
I did just want to let everyone know out there that we are planning on doing an episode on that specific topic. I did kind of want to weave it into here, but there was just too much information, too much juice to spill on Oprah that I think it deserves its own episode.
But yeah, I see some of this stuff it's just like there is an interesting phenomena of people wanting to feel better about terrible things happening. And I think that this can kind of prey on that really aggressively.
It does. And you know what? I think people naturally find the best way that they can donate or help. So if you want to donate to the Maui People Fund, or if you have donated to it, I don't want you to feel bad about yourself. That's your own decision. We're just out here to tell you how this is structured and why it exists so that you can make your own educated decision on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we'll keep some tabs open on it, see where this money actually goes when people start getting it.
Where's the money, Oprah?
That'll be interesting to note, but until then, all we can do is wait.
Yeah, and I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting, Oprah. If you ever
we
want,
got
man.
our eye on you.
We got on. And also the book reviews for her book. The comments are hilarious. So
maybe we'll leave a link in that, just if any of you want a little giggle after, because I know this was a heavy episode. I mean, it sucks to hear when this stuff happens. So we'll leave some comedic relief.
I feel like when in doubt, you can always trust the people of the internet to goof it out.
Well said, my love. All right, with that, we are going to wrap up episode 14 of the Can I Tell You Something podcast. I am so curious what everyone out there thinks on this. If you have a similar opinion or you're like, oh my gosh, this is so wrong, let us know. I want to hear from you. I love hearing a difference of opinion and all the juice out there, especially because, I mean, this is a controversial topic.
I mean, if anyone also knows of anyone that can confirm whether or not they've received money from the People's Fund of Maui, please let us know. I am incredibly curious to see what's going on with that. And I haven't been able to find really anything on social media related to that. So,
let us know.
If you enjoyed this episode or any of the other episodes of the Can I Tell You Something podcast, we have TikTok and Instagram. So follow us at Can I Tell You...
YouTube.
Oh, and YouTube. So follow us at Can I Tell You Something podcast. That is Can I Tell You SMTH podcast.
I like that little radio voice you put on. Seems very official.
Podcast,
we are on a podcast. But that wraps it up for us for episode 14. Until next week. Bye.
Bye.